Shashi and his team for coming up with conference upon conference and running them successfully through and through. We know how difficult it is to run. And before I dive into my presentation, thanks to Mr. Gaur, because if he wouldn't have come, I would be the villain between your sumptuous lunch, and it would be difficult for me to actually hold your attention. So what I'm going to be talking about is probably going to resonate more now rather than earlier, probably because of the panelists who've been good enough to run a couple of insightful articulations that they did, which helps me in actually putting my point across. So without much ado, let me just jump into my presentation on how we are looking at the transformation of India as a global data center and a cloud solutions hub. This is the DE-CIX perspective. Now, if you look at the Indian DC ecosystem as of now, what you see is we roughly have about 162 plus, a couple of them here and there, colo data centers around, 19 internet exchange points, and 26 cities where these DCs are present as of today. Now, some interesting trivia that I would want to share with you on the data implosion that all of us have been witnessing. Look at the population percentage in 2017, 26.7%, from a 27% kind of a piece to 22 when you are almost at the edge of 60%. That's the kind of jump you're seeing there. Device, I don't need to talk too much about it. 2017 is 1.6 billion devices connected to the net as compared to 22 when 2.2 billion plus is the number that we have as of now. You look at the average speeds from 9.5 megs in 17 to 22 where you have 32 odd megs is the average speed that you see. And look at the colossal data consumption from 2.4 GB in 17 to a whopping about 14 odd gigs as of now. So this is something that will give you the understanding of why we see the implosion happening and the cascading effect that it brings in. Three critical factors that we see are investments, market, and the necessary policies that accelerate everything that nation and ecosystem players like us would want to do. Now, if you see, one of the most important things that we are here seeing is the investments getting done. These are just a few names that I've been able to put up, but the numbers definitely speak volumes. So from a 14 billion USD investment in the last 5 years, by 25, we should see $28 billion being invested in the Indian ecosystem. And these are some of the names, and there are some more also who are coming in as of now, which actually is going to lead to a lot of action in this industry. And that's where I think we are at the cusp of getting some great action being seen, not only in India, but globally as well. And there are reasons why so many people are coming into India, whether it is, an X organization or a Y organization. We are privileged enough to have conversations with almost 99% of them, and that lets us have a little bit of an unfair advantage to understand what is it that they look forward to in a country like India and why are they investing so heavily here. So, two influencing factors, as I said, policy. Firstly, a forward-looking policy announcement that got made during the budget where we said infrastructure ambit, obviously data center comes in. But how do you take that at a national level and then adopt it locally in your own states is also going to be more important. And this is what we saw recently where there's been a plethora of investments coming in the northern India, specifically in UP, if you see. And these are the points which we saw, whether it is capital subsidy, whether it is interest subsidy, whether it is the right kind of policy and ease of doing business as a guiding principle, single window approvals, and so on and so forth. So while we see all that, our key findings, if you see, from a global perspective, is that over the period of 19 to 25, cumulative investment in the DC industry is anticipated in the range of about $1.3 trillion. And IT infrastructure would amount to 77% of the total data center investments. The remaining obviously will go to the peripheral, so I wouldn't want to dwell too much on that. Here, from an Indian DC perspective, if you see, over the last 19 to 25 period, a total investment of about $28 billion is going in and will touch that number by 25. So India is expected to have a CAGR, as it was earlier said, but then the quoted figures are quoted figures. I'm sure these numbers will be far, far more overachieved when we see the actual action happening. You know, what's the competitive advantage? Why India? The fact remains that majority of our investments are concentrated for tier 4 data centers. The cost advantage in operating, a couple of earlier panelists have said, so I wouldn't want to dwell too much on that. The availability of skilled manpower is one of the greatest assets that we have. And obviously, everybody will face challenges at a certain time back. And that's where the skilling and reskilling keeps on happening. And human capital is something that will gain more importance as we delve ahead in time. Increased utilization of outsourced data center capacity is something that we see is going to be taking a lot of importance, and service providers have accepted and accelerated the planned expansions that the market has been asking for. Now, where is this action coming in and where are the deployments happening? So Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Delhi, because they are basically already enriched with decent amount of connectivity solutions that are available as of now, and that's one angle which is a large subject in itself. So I would say these are the locations where we have the best available as of now. Geographic location, power, fiber connectivity, right kind of construction backups and operational efficiencies remain here. India is also looking at sustainable data center builds, and I personally am involved with a couple of organizations where I see the way in which they have taken huge strides in wanting to subsidize the kind of raw guzzling of power that they do by doing a lot of stuff, but for their own reasons known to them, they don't want to be talking too much about it. But very soon you'll see a lot of data center organizations actually talking about those initiatives, which, in my opinion, they should have been doing by now. So now coming to what are the challenges that an enterprise customer typically faces, you see. One is obviously increase the performance and strengthen the security and resilience of their connectivity. This, as was said by a lot of panelists, if there is no connectivity, there is no data transmission happening. So that forms the backbone of any accelerated deployment and growth of business, actually speaking. So whether you talk about profitability, whether you talk about customer service, connectivity will definitely play an important role. Second, obviously, is vendor lock-in. That is something that is being looked at by a lot of organizations. It reduces the complexity when it comes to connecting with my partners. That is what an enterprise would today look at. So when we typically do our direct cloud, a lot of enterprises are very happy looking at us, because once they connect with us, not only are they able to get access to peering services, which helps them have better control on their traffic, better security, better scalability, robustness, and the works, but also gives them an advantage on the same access port to have their multi-cloud strategy accelerated because of a plug-and-play solution that we have on the net. Further to that, what is more important is to have control on compliance on the ecosystem partners as well. So these are some of the challenges that the enterprise customers today face. And our own experience has been that the more you get into ease of doing business, the more you see the business burgeoning towards your side. So what are the 3 KPIs, if I may say, for any data center of any size today? First is the geographical coverage, carrier, and data center neutral interconnection infrastructure. While the interconnection business might be pretty nascent as of now and small, but it acts as a fabulous catalyst for any organization on both sides, whether it is the buyer or whether it is the one who's setting up their DC for that decision-making process. Local access to greater density of network as well as diversity of networks is one of the key KPIs that any data center who wants to not only build but also get the consumption done and go to the next stage will have to look at. And third and most important is scalable and customizable interconnection services that support every enterprise's digital transformation journey. While it's a vast subject, we've seen how important it has become, not now, but at the onset of COVID, and there's a lot that we can say, but as of today, in the interest of time, I can tell you that more often than not, when we see organizations aligning themselves towards these 3 KPIs, They have a ready GTM, which is getting cooked in the manner in which, if I have to hazard a guess, about 20-30% of their customer base is any which way is taken care of before they hit the ground. So now I'll quickly move to what is it that helps data center competitiveness. And when we speak about that, the first one obviously is increasing network density. Think beyond the cross connect, because we are no longer in the traditional business of selling cross connect and making money out of that, which was once upon a time what was happening. And we've seen a lot of transformation in business processes and go-to-markets that our data center partners have evolved over the last 3 years, and it's shown in their customer acquisitions and the way in which they've been able to become magnets for customers, both from the ISP and the enterprise side. Going forward is build flexibility for the customer. The more you straitjacket your offerings and services, the more it becomes difficult for enterprises, and everybody today is getting used to ease of doing business that we bring to the table at every step that we talk about. Last but not the least, as was rightly mentioned by one of our audience members, is there's always going to be a gap, and that's where human capital deployment and improvement, training and development will come into play. So the skills gap will always be there, but it's for us to be ensuring that that takes care by regular interventions. So coming back to a very favorite topic of ours, and what was spoken about some time back by a couple of panelists, getting digital applications and content closer to the people as well as businesses. So latency, as we say, is the new currency. And it was exhilarating to know some people speak about the same language without knowing that this is the thing that we've coined for ourselves for a very long time, and we have this as a key mantra when we talk to our customers, whether it is local or global for that matter. So what is it that was there earlier today? Conventional type of enterprise connectivity was too complicated, too difficult, and led to a multiple plethora of discussions and transactions happening at every stage. And the IT guy was struggling a lot. And I've come from a background where I've seen the other side of the story, so I understand how difficult it is for a CIO, CXO to make decisions when it comes to managing this kind of a complexity that we currently are seeing here on the board. But come a new way of doing business, where your performance, security, and all other compliances get taken care of, is the new interconnection regime, where controllability of data as well as your infrastructure both get taken care of, while we say the interconnection fabric comes into play. What this typically does is to have a plug-and-play mechanism, as I mentioned some time back in a very short format, as to if you've decided what you want to do for your organization, you know that there is an organization that helps you achieve this seamlessly and in a jiffy. And that is what will eventually lead to organizations take those measures where they are able to have their performance, which will be greatly impacted by the latencies that we bring to the table. Control on their network is far more better. Security of the network is far more better, so on and so forth. So this is a small trivia that I thought I should share with you. While people have been speaking about OTT and the kind of surges that were seen during and after COVID, and what happened after COVID, so to speak. So this is something that we've been following for the last 3 years, and I have seen the growth that has been unabated when it comes to the traffic surges that we've seen on our platform. The first one, incidentally, happens to be the one that got spoken about, and a small trivia I would share in 30 seconds is that I'm sure a lot of you all would know, November, December 2018, I think you just had about one OTT platform. I think Reliance used to run it at that point of time. And I'm sure some of you all would know that March of 22, there were about 58 OTT players available here in India. So that's the kind of surge that the country has seen. Regional content has gone through the roof, and we've been able to see that as a reflection on the traffic surges that we see. Imagine having a 3,074% growth. I don't think any other country would be able to give these kind of figures, what India has been. Yeah, I'll do that. Whether it is gaming, whether it is other setups, you see some great numbers that I've put on the table. When it comes to DE-CIX as a catalyst, as I rightly said some time back, whether it is a micro data center or whether it is a hyperscaler data center, and the entire value chain, we become relevant to each one of them, and hence it is important for all the data center players to know, which obviously is happening as of now, as to why is it that we become a catalyst. So data center is today heading towards a place where a concept of 5G, which is being spoken about so widely, is come to play, but that in itself in isolation will not do any great deal, is what I believe, because for the first time enterprise applications are already ready and available across the globe for us to emulate, and by virtue of not having a lot of legacy infrastructure, we should be seeing a lot of adoption which is faster here. So while we call this a digital interconnection triangle, wherein AI, which is the brain, IoT, which will be the hand, and 5G will be the heart of this operation, and you will see magic happening, trust me, in the next 24 to 36 months, because we see a lot of use cases which can be deployed in India because of the reasons that I gave you. Very soon we'll be launching maps which will be able to make us more relevant to all the customers within a data center ecosystem, as a result of which the stickiness of the customer, and from a go-to-market, it helps them in their hunting and farming endeavors as well. So in the interest of time, let me just tell you that a DE-CIX connected interconnection location today would reduce cost, improve latencies, give you the security of a network. Resilience is something that I spoke about some time back, and accessibility to the international data centers. Small 2 seconds more to talk about what we are as of now. Last but not the least, obviously, is that we are available across 40 internet exchanges locations across the globe, more than 3,000 connected customers, and 500 data centers. In India, we deploy only within data centers, as a result of which we have 4 exchanges in 4 metros, 580 plus customers, and 16 data centers across 4 metros. DE-CIX Mumbai, about a year and a half back, became Asia Pacific's #1 in terms of connected customer base, which is something that everybody here needs to be proud about. The fact that one Indian entity, which was nowhere at 3 years back, today is at #1 and consistently sustaining that growth at at a place where you have 29 countries and 153 exchanges being monitored. I spoke about my single access service, which gives you a plethora of services now, and upcoming services like GlobePeer and DDoS protection, which will play a great role. We have our presences, as I mentioned, in multiple data centers, and as Jasjot said, we also have connectivity to 22 plus data centers beyond this, which are connected by Lightstorm, because a couple of them are overlapping with the sets that we are already present. Last but not the least, with due humility, amongst a plethora of other awards and recognitions that the organization has got, for the 7th time running, we've won the Global Career Awards as the best internet exchange operator globally, and a couple of Indian ones. My name is Sudhir Kunder. I'm the country director. Feel free to give me a shout out post your lunch break. Thanks a lot for your patience, and I hope I made this time worthwhile for you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhir ji, for very, very informative.
But where is that data being hosted? So data centers play a major role, but are they really efficient? Are they really going to deliver you the next gen technologies which you are working on? Are they going to deliver you the cloud computing applications what you are really working on? So over to you, Sudhir, how are you going to really smarten the existing data centers? So what are your views on it?
So while we typically make decisions based on these discerning KPIs, and that's why we have a deep-rooted understanding of which player that we would want to get into. To answer what you said is, the future is all about having data centers which are AI-driven, where decisions get done in that manner, where you will be able to not only reduce costs, but increase efficiencies. So earlier it was proactive, reactive. Now it is time for predictive. The moment you are able to call out, the data that is coming up your way, and slice and dice it and decipher it, and then take the right kind of discerning decisions, your productivity will increase, your customer stickiness and soreness will have an impact on it, and obviously it is a decision-making cycle at both ends when it comes to onboarding of customers, as well as onboarding of investor for that matter, that if I build a business and there is somebody who's going to come from outside and invest into my data center, am I relevant to him from not only today, but a future readiness in terms of understanding of what technology is there with me? So it's a cliche that I run with my team, and but unfortunately or fortunately, it is applicable everywhere. It's not important what you have, but what is it that you do with what you have is important. So while we are rich in knowledge in terms of having the right kind of manpower, skilling, everything, but are we able to orchestrate that together to be able to get the right kind of productivity outputs and take this to the next level is what we've seen some of our data center partners getting into, and that gives us a lot of hope that future, especially the 24 to 36 months period, there is a lot of action that will actually be seen, not on the drawing board, but actually on the ground, so to speak.
I think a predictive part is important. Moving away from the drawing board is for the power and the cooling part of it, which is a major concern in any data center. And that's where we have to really look in for new technologies. And there's already, we're talking about the green data centers, the cooling, we have different technologies coming up. And AI and ML, when we talk of it, definitely is going to play a major role. So how AI and ML is going to assist in the power and the cooling part of it and the green data center part of it? Over to you.
Thank you. So just to add my 2 cents on what was being said on no touch and the fact that AI and ML typically exactly what you said is what we've seen with our international data center partners, is where they've been able to achieve 40% increase in productivity when they have actually deployed this. So while we are speaking something that is a little bit far away here in India, but that is in the realms of reality. And closer home, it hits us more, glaringly, because for us, for example, we have an international platform, which is Apollon. So unlike here, where we do the provisioning with human intervention, over there, for a couple of years, we have something called as a Mac patch robot. So the entire piece is done seamlessly at the click of a couple of buttons, So what is being spoken about, I can only tell the audience that it's not in the realms of some white paper, but I'm sure that will be here in India very soon. Now, coming back to what you said, we've seen a couple of initiatives where the right kind of deployment has happened at these, again, referring to those guys since we talk to them pretty often, is the ability to get right kind of savings by using AI ML effectively is gone up from 7.5% to 23% as of now on an international standard, wherein if you are able to deploy these assets rightly and monitor and action them, more again sounding repetitive, becoming predictive, knowing when to tweak which part of your setup, both on the cooling as well as on the power setup, has led to these significant, and these numbers might seem okay kind of numbers for us, but when you look at the humongous amount of consumption that these data centers typically get into, you will see that it actually augurs well for the industry now, because as I said sometime back in my presentation also, we don't have a lot of legacy infrastructure. As a result of which, what we are going to be deploying today as a country in many of these data centers will already be at a next gen level. So I am very confident that whatever we've seen as proof of concept and monetization of these investments that are made on the ground today internationally will sooner rather than later be relevant and visible for all of y'all to actually see happening here in India as well.
Yep. Great, thanks for your insights. And Chinmay, one point which is...
A quick answer to what you are asking, The first part, when do we see the actual happening of it? I have been saying this with a certain amount of confidence that yes, very soon rather than later, because you are privy to certain discussions that go on within the data center environment that we have our discussions normally, number one. Number two, most of the things necessarily don't have to happen serially. They can happen parallelly. While adoption will happen, the checks and balances to make that a robust, doable, scalable setup will also be in place for sure. And I can tell you this, and you'll agree upon the fact that more often than not, in hindsight, we become intelligent. Thankfully, the hindsight for an ecosystem like India always is available in the global village, as we call it today. So there is a lot of information and hope available across the globe today on how things have happened, and that will help us shorten our cycle to get it from scratch to implementation and monetization.